What is the best song of the decade so far? Well, to find out, I went to the most trustworthy source in music, of course, Rate Your Music, and I took the top 128 highest rated songs of the decade from 2020 to 2025, and then I seeded all of them by placement onto a bracket to find out today what song will be crowned the winner. And as always, if your favorite song doesn't appear, let me know in the comments what is your personal favorite song of the decade and why. Okay, so our first matchup is number 1 seed, The Place Where He Inserted the Blade by Black Country New Road versus the last place seed, 128th, Milk of the Madonna by Deftones. As much as I really enjoy the super heavy wall of guitars and the riffs on this Deftones track, I will say just the way that the song progresses, the progression, the build-up, and just the strange instrumentals. I mean, you have these saxophone passages, you have flute on this track too. I just love how Isaac Wood's vocals just sounds so broken and damaged, and the final group chorus at the end is just amazing to listen to. So yeah, for me personally, it has to go to this Black Country New Road track. Next, the 64th seed versus the 65th seed. This is Lil Ugly Mane's VPN versus Beach House's Superstar. We're right in the middle, so these two tracks could theoretically be really close in terms of rating, and I do enjoy both tracks quite a bit. I really like the lyrical symbolism with VPN. I mean, this is such an online internet song, you know, nowadays, hiding behind the protection of your screen or your internet persona, or a VPN in this case. But personally, I feel like this Beach House song is something I enjoy a little bit more. I just really like the spaced out instrumentals that we're used to seeing from Beach House. So yeah, for me, Superstar moves on. Next, number 32, Talk by Sufjan Stevens versus Second Sleep, number 97 by Magdalena Bay. And personally, this Magdalena Bay track, while it is great in my opinion, I feel like kind of sounds like it could have just been a B-side off of their latest record, Imaginal Disc. So yeah, if you really love that project, definitely go check out this song as well. But personally, this Sufjan Stevens song is just so packed with such potent emotion, just the vocal delivery. I really like the vocal breakdown and the instrumental passages towards the end of the song as well. Absolutely heartbreaking track, just the performances alone. So I would have to give it to Sufjan Stevens. Jessie Ware's Spotlight at number 33 versus Nausicaa, Love Will Be Revealed by Cameron Winter. To me, aesthetically, these songs are kind of like on opposite ends of the spectrum. There's just such tight grooves and playing on this Jessie Ware track. I mean, this is kind of like one of those songs that you would hear that I'd feel like it was genetically tested and formulated in the lab to just be mixed perfectly. And this Cameron Winter track, on the other hand, just feels very loose in the best way possible. And it was really interesting diving a little bit deeper into the Homeric or the literary reference behind this track. But for me personally, this Jessie Ware track is just a little bit too groovy to not let it walk through to the next round. And yeah, this will definitely not be the last that we'll be seeing of Cameron Winter on this bracket. Next is the number 16th seed, Black Midi's Welcome to Hell versus Kalis by Candelabro. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, at 113. And honestly, this is a bit of a tough matchup because these are two very instrumentally dense tracks. You have these super dramatic operatic sections, very militant lyricism on this Black Midi track. It kind of feels like a villainous character or antagonist that's doing his grand reveal at the end of a movie or something. So yeah, I just absolutely love how creative this track is. And this track Kalis, which obviously there's a language barrier here, but instrumentally I was actually very impressed. I really liked the arpeggiated saxophone parts at the end of this track. And actually, I'm gonna have to give it to this track. It really caught me by surprise. Belize by Black Thought, and we have Danger Mouse on the production, as well as a posthumous MF Doom feature, I believe, versus Flash in the Pan. This is a new track, new Jane Remover track. And I mean, this is just two lyricists just at the top of their game. The beat alone is also just super angelic behind them as well. And that's not to take away from Jane Remover's track here. I really do like this new crop of tracks that we're getting from Jane Remover. It's not as flashy, but it's super honed in on the songwriting and the structure. But I just found myself enjoying this Black Thought and MF Doom track a little bit more. Okay, next, number 17. This is Image by Magdalena Bay versus Patch Made by Xavier So Based. And before I even explain anything, I'm just gonna put Image right here. I'm genuinely just at a loss for words and just shocked that this Xavier So Based song even made it in the top 128. And I'm not sure if this is like a piece of postmodern art that's meant to be ironic and satirical. I'm really hoping it is, because this is genuinely the most annoying song on this entire bracket. Maybe it's just my lack of knowledge on all the 2K references that are being tossed around this song, but there are just all these ad-libs and vocal sound effects that really don't add much to the track at all. Whereas this Magdalene track, I will just continue to glaze endlessly, especially the ending where they decide to switch up the synth and really turn the bass up at the end. So yeah, I'll gladly put this track over this Patch Made track. Next, we have this new track by The Cure, End Song, at number 48 versus the number 81 seed. This is Superman That by Injury Reserve. And we get a lot of what we're used to seeing from The Cure's previous output. Super downtrodden, dreary track. And with its longer runtime, you're really just meant to sit in the dread that is present in Robert Smith's lyricism, as well as the very just sad and depressing instrumentals as well. My only flaw is that maybe it's just a little bit too drawn out, but it is the finale track off their new album anyway. And it's going up against this Injury Reserve track, which is just super innovative in the production. I mean, very glitchy. I think it even uses a Black Country New Road sample as well. But I really like the messaging behind this track. Sort of the idea that your whole identity or your legacy left behind is just boiled down to something as simple as an internet trend like Soulja Boy's Crank That. So yeah, personally, I'm gonna have to give it to this Injury Reserve song. Okay, next up is Anything by Adrian Lenker versus Kerosene by Yves Tumor. Personally, this was a track that I was spinning a lot, this Adrian Lenker track. It's just super, I don't know how to describe it, nostalgic, sad, I guess, but Adrian Lenker just has a real knack for being able to transform or utilize lyrics that otherwise just be very mundane and just being able to extract the most nuanced detail from them. And on the other hand, this Yves Tumor track, I do like its blend of pop and rock and even R&B aesthetics, but for me, emotionally, it doesn't do the same amount of damage that this Adrian Lenker track does. Fish Whisperer by Violet Pony versus Forever by Charlie XCX. Two tracks that in my mind are just very much rate your music coded, if that makes any sense. I mean, very internet sounding tracks, perhaps PC or hyperpop adjacent tracks in style at least. And if you've never heard of this artist, Violet Pony, before you automatically dismiss sort of the branding surrounding this artist, I do genuinely think that this is some great, very varied output in terms of the musical aesthetics. I mean, some very synth heavy passages here, but these are very well thought out musical compositions that have multiple moving parts to them as well. But I do think I prefer the lower seed here, Forever, Charlie XCX. Sort of the idea lyrically that this relationship is being put aside, but beyond the label itself, the sentiment can still live on. Okay, next is Babies in a Thundercloud by Godspeed You Black Emperor versus Kingdom Come by Cindy Lee. These are two tracks that I don't believe you can find on traditional streaming services. I think I've had to find both these tracks on YouTube. And in a way, this first higher seeded track doesn't really feel like this is sort of like an appropriate format to discuss this song and really this album in general, because while this is a purely instrumental track, it really does speaks volumes to a greater message beyond just typical pop song structures. For instance, if you've never heard of this album, No Title, or if you've never listened to this record, I highly recommend you check it out as well. And we have this Cindy Lee track, Kingdom Come, which I saw a lot of comments in the YouTube video for this track comparing it melodically and harmonically to Glenn Campbell's Southern Nights. It's kind of like a stylistic revamp or reimagination or innovation of that track. So yeah, I included the Godspeed track in here just to retain the integrity of the bracket. But yeah, for the sake of this format, I'm going to give it to Kingdom Come by Cindy Lee. Okay, next is The Magician by Greep at 40 versus What Kind of Rappin' Is This at number 89 by JPEG Mafia. From what I understand, I believe there were two versions of the JPEG Mafia album due to the sampling clearance. And while this is the offline cover, I actually do prefer the traditional LP with all the sample clearance over the offline version, just personally. But regardless, this is one of my favorite tracks off the album, and I really do like this Greep track as well. I really like how drawn out these passages are, and it really does amaze me how Greep as a musician and really as a composer is able to let the music bend to his own creative vision, exploring Latin grooves and Latin aesthetics in his music, perhaps stepping out of his comfort zone a little bit from the experimental rock stuff he was doing with Black Midi. Ended up panning out really well in the end. But yeah, personally, I think I just enjoy this JPEG Mafia track just a little bit more. Walkin' by Denzel Curry versus Dark Angels, the introduction. This is Space Ghost Perp at 120. And yeah, I'm gonna have to give it to the Denzel Curry track. I'm not really a big fan of, maybe it's just I'm not a big fan of this cloud rap aesthetic, but to me the beat just kind of feels a little bit lagging, a little bit drab, and I think it does overstay its welcome just a little bit. But meanwhile, I just really enjoy this Denzel Curry track. I thought the switch in the flow from this traditional, more swung 90s hip-hop feel, just seamlessly transitioning into this trap flow, was just really creative to me. Okay, next is FaceTime. This is Billy Woods, Kenny Siegel, and number 56 versus Beautiful Worlds by Paranul. Just by the beat alone off of FaceTime, this is kind of one of those 5 star luxury feeling kind of beats. And yeah, just the title alone is already a double entendre. Just the way that Woods enunciates the word Marrakesh, it's just so satisfying. And I wasn't finding myself enjoying this Parannoul album as much as I thought I would, just because I feel like the guitars and the melody and the progression was just a little bit one-dimensional. I will say this track was one of my favorites off the album, but yeah, for me, the best thing that this album has going for it is just the beautiful album cover. So yeah, I'm just gonna have to give it to FaceTime. Wet Dream at number 24 by Willie Rodriguez was taken versus I Love You, I Hate You, Little Sims at 105. I was actually pretty surprised. I've never heard of this track by Willie Rodriguez before. Just some really impassioned lo-fi rock. Almost felt like there were multiple phases or movements in this track. But yeah, personally, this Little Sims song was just really impressive to me. I mean, the way that she weaves in and out of the sample and integrates it into her own story and the lyricism. So yeah, one of my favorites off the album, and I definitely pick it for this round. Girl So Confusing at number 41. I believe this is the deluxe or extended edition of the album with the additional songs, which means this is probably the track with the Lord feature on it, versus During Pride Month by Leroy, which I learned was actually just another pseudonym or moniker for Jane Remover. And yeah, this Leroy track is just maximalist, balls to the wall kind of production, kind of like the maximalist expression that you could get out of a Derriere track. There's even a Jersey Club rendition at the end of this track as well. So yeah, really enjoyed this track, and it's up against one of my favorites off of Brat. For me, it's just kind of hard to compete with this Charlie XCX song. I just love the driving synth beats, and yeah, I'm gonna have to give it to this track. Simulation Swarm by Big Thief, the second place or number 2 seed versus Psycho Boost. This is Jane Remover off of Revenge Seekers featuring a Danny Brown verse. As much as I really do enjoy Simulation Swarm and really all the tracks off of Dragon New War Mountain, I Believe in You, personally this Jane Remover song, which is one of my most played and one of my favorites of the year, just the side chaining alone, just super impressive. And the Danny Brown track, kind of like a chameleon lyricist that can sort of blend in or sound good on any beat, even these super hyper energetic beats. So yeah, I would have to give it to the Jane Remover song. Okay, next is White Ceiling by Parannoul versus Boys at School Spelling. The comments I had about the previous Parannoul track kind of apply here as well. The vocals, while there is a little bit of a language barrier, are just sort of drowning in the soundscape of guitars. It doesn't have the same appeal as like a traditional shoegaze track to me. It's kind of like a bunch of mud that doesn't really have that much emotional appeal, just personally in my opinion. Not like a bad track by any means, but just not really my style. And this spelling track, really just beautiful progression to the song. And lyrically, I read it was kind of about, you know, your adolescent years and sort of being perceived on all angles, constantly calculated, the way that other people at school perceive you. And I really love the effects that are given on the vocals as well. This is just a beautiful song, and I would easily put it over this Parannoul song. Dawn in the Aiden, Ichiko Aoba at 31 versus Eat Men Eat at 98 by Black Midi. Once again, just polar opposites in terms of production, in terms of aesthetics. I love how clear the guitar plucking is on this track, and it really is a track that feels like you're floating, just kind of like the album cover suggests. Versus Eat Men Eat, super just wild, dramatic track, and I read a little bit into the lyricism just because of how esoteric and archaic it sounded. And apparently by the end, the general is kind of fattening up these soldiers and slicing open their stomachs and harvesting the stomach acid. I'm not entirely sure if that's the correct interpretation of the lyrics, but this track does excite me a little bit more, and I do enjoy it a little bit over this other track. Concord, Black Country New Road at number 34 versus Drinking Age, Cameron Winter, number 95. And yeah, right off the bat, I'm just gonna give it to this track. This is probably my favorite Cameron Winter performance vocally. The vibrato just goes absolutely insane, and as much as I really do love Ants From Up There and this track up here, yeah, I have to just give props to this song once again. Porcelain Slightly by Little Ugly Mane versus Cancionera by Natalia Lafourcade. And yeah, I really do like the plucky, synthy sort of beat behind this Little Ugly Mane track. But yeah, this Natalia Lafourcade track is just way too pretty to ignore. The percussion is just so detailed. You have those wire brush strums in the background. So yeah, this track definitely has to walk for me. Okay, Terror Gang by Space Goes Perp and a whole host of other features on this track at number 50 versus She's Leaving You, MJ Lenderman at number 79. And yeah, like I mentioned with the Dark Angels introduction track, I'm just not a huge fan, not really sold on this cloud rap. I don't know, maybe it's just the delivery, just a little bit too sleepy for me, versus genuinely one of the most catchy indie rock songs, I believe, of the decade. Almost gives me like a Car Seat Headrest or Slacker rock rock kind of vibe. But yeah, I'm just a sucker for vocalists who aren't particularly, bending over backwards or performing like masterful acrobatics, or just sound like just regular people. To me, it's just an emotional selling point. So yeah, I'm gonna have to give it to this MJ Linderman song. Knees at number 18, Injury Reserve versus Pantomime at 111 by WJSN. And it feels a little bit strange calling this song a K-pop song, because while it does buy into a lot of the same aesthetics, it also feels a little bit more innovative. I mean, there's a lot more future funk sounds on this track, and it is an extremely catchy song. Again, just feels like it was formulated in a lab to be a chart topper. But for me, this Injury Reserve track is just way too heartbreaking. I mean, just the lyrics alone. Knees hurt when I grow, but that's a tough pill to swallow because I'm not getting taller. So yeah, maybe just a little bit of personal bias for me, but this Injury Reserve track just has to walk. Okay, Father Time by Kendrick Lamar with the Sampha feature versus Cheerleader, Porter Robinson. And while it may seem a little bit blasphemous, I'm just gonna have to give it to the Porter Robinson song. This was just endlessly impressive to me. I mean, I watched a little bit of the live stream clips where he sort of mentions the production process and how he's sort of chasing this bittersweet feeling with the song, and he kind of just achieved it. I mean, this is to me like a perfect, near flawless pop song. It's a little bit of a tough matchup because I really do like this Kendrick Lamar song, and obviously the Sampha feature is great. I was a little bit surprised to not see any track off of Lahai at all. No Sampha solo songs on the entire bracket. That didn't crack the 128. But yeah, for me, this Porter Robinson song just has to walk. Okay, the 7th place seed is 12 Stout Street by RX Poppy and Young Good versus 3D Country by Geese. And I'm gonna be honest, this 12 Stout Street, just this beat alone was stuck in my head for the past week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, me preparing for this video. The best way I can describe it, it sounds kind of like a old dusty PlayStation 2 rebooting up again, but in a nostalgic way, and really just the best way possible. Super impassioned vocals, and the lyrics hit extremely hard on this track, but I was just enjoying this 3D Country, this Geese song, way too much. I love how the finale just kind of fizzles and dissolves into just pure chaos. De Todas las Flores, Tile Africade again at number 58 versus Taxes by Geese again at number 71. And I'm gonna be honest, this is probably the hardest matchup for me up until this point. Everything I said about the previous Natalia Lafourcade song applies here. Everything is just mixed and balanced to perfection. You can just tell how much care went into producing and writing and executing this song. And to purely contrast that, we have Taxes. Yeah, it's just the way that those guitars come in by the second half. That's just pure rock, blues rock, whatever you want to call it, bliss, and just absurdist lyricism that's just super enjoyable to listen to. Okay, next we have Goodbye by Sewer at number 26 versus Born Yesterday by Kwanka at 103. Two super dreary songs paired side by side, and on this song Goodbye we have very glitched out manic drum and bass scattering throughout this multi-phase track. And a lot of people were actually suggesting this very album as one of the saddest of all time in their personal opinion on a previous video I made. And I guess for me personally, the aesthetics don't amount themselves to being something that I would be emotionally drawn to, but it could just be because I'm not familiar with the context surrounding the production and the making of this album. And then you have this Quadaka track, which is genuinely very heartbreaking on the surface. I mean, super interesting, weird, but enjoyable mix of emo, rap, hip-hop, indie, indie-tronica. Hard to pin down genre-wise, but for me it walks for this first round. Okay, Narrator by Squid at number 39 versus Cody Blue 31 at number 90. Yeah, this is a fantastic linear building post-punk song by Squid here. I just really enjoy the climactic finish that this song has. I think the payoff is extremely worth it, but for me this JID song just impressed me so much. I mean, really, who knew that he had this vocal ability just stored up in the tank? Maybe he was refining it throughout the years, but yeah, this is just a great soulful track, and for me it has to walk. Basketball Shoes at number 10 by Black Country New Road versus Early Age Death, RXK Nephew at 119. I guess I'll get a little bit more into RXK Nephew at the number 5 seed. Personally, this is not my favorite RXK Nephew performance. Kind of a strange Jersey Club vibe to this track, and especially going up against this amazing Black Country New Road song, might be the best, most explosive finale or chorus on this whole bracket. So yeah, for me, easily it goes to Basketball Shoes. We have Rope Away by Swans at number 55 versus Sadness as a Gift at number 74, Adrian Lenker. It was really jarring, a little bit strange to see a more uplifting track from Swans. But yeah, they pulled it off really well. And up against this Adrian Lenker track, this track and many others like it on this album was just in my rotation just so often. And personally for me, it does beat the Swans track. Good News, Mac Miller at 23 versus White Ceiling, the demo version at 106 by Parannoul once again. And I do think I do prefer this demo version actually over the one that made the cut of the album, just because it's a little bit more rough around the edges, a little bit more charming, and I think there's a lot more variety in the melodies. You can kind of hear them sort of figuring out what the structure of the song would be. But yeah, personally, this track by Mac Miller is it just sounds so tired and defeated, really in the best way possible. It is just a heartbreaking track production-wise, it's just super stripped back. But yeah, emotionally, this song just continues to just hit like an absolute truck. So yeah, Mac Miller walks here. Okay, this is the last matchup of the West Division, I guess I'll call it. And we have How to Pretend at number 42 by Lucy Bedrock versus Say the Name Clipping at number 87. And this might be another pick that might make people a little bit upset, but I was just so immensely disappointed in myself for not tapping into Lucy Bedrock prior to making this bracket, because this is genuinely just absolutely beautiful and super impressive song. I mean, somehow the way that the melodies and the harmonies weave together, it just gets better and better after every chorus as the song goes on. But yeah, that's not to take away at all from this Clipping song. I mean, if you're looking for experimental hip-hop rap, and maybe you're not a fan of mumble rap and you want your lyrics to be super enunciated, look no further than this track, Say the Name. This is the quintessential horrorcore hip-hop pick if there ever was one. And if you've never heard of Clipping or tapped into their music before, and maybe you're a fan of, let's say, Hamilton, for example, you might dig this musical project. And definitely check out this Lucy Bedrock track if you've not already. Okay, I've shifted over to the other side of the screen because we are now on the, I guess, Eastern division of the bracket. So this is the second half, or the next 64 songs that were listed in the top 128. And at number 4, we have Hazard Duty Pay by JPEG Mafia versus 125 seed. We have Little Things, Big Thief. And yeah, just for the sample flip alone, you just have to give it to this JPEG Mafia song. Although I really do like this Big Thief song. It feels like you're sort of drowning or wallowing through tall grass of a meadow or something like that. And Adrian Lenker's scream at the end is obviously very iconic as well. But yeah, for me, just based off of personal preference, I'm gonna have to give it to the JPEG Mafia song. Okay, next is Kingdom Hearts Key at number 61. This is JPEG Mafia, Danny Brown, as well as a Red Veil feature. And we have Mahash Mashana at number 68 by Father John Misty. And I know it just gave the previous seed to a JPEG Mafia produced song. But yeah, I just love this song a little bit too much as well, as if the glaze can continue to keep going. I mean, the original sample is in this like swung 6/8 kind of waltzy feel, and yet somehow it's chopped in such a weird way where JPEG Mafia, Danny Brown, and Red Veil are just so effortlessly floating on top of it. And not only the flow and the way it's chopped, but also the tempo seems to be a little bit fluctuating as well. So I really like how organic it sounds and how it's not afraid to be a little bit off the grid as well. And yeah, I know it sounds like a broken record, but I really do love this Father John Misty track too. It's just I prefer Kingdom Hearts Key over it. Okay, 2 closers, 2 finale tracks. I Know the Ends, Phoebe Bridgers at number 29 versus The Ballad of Matt and Mika and the 100th seed by Magdalena Bay, of course. Honestly, this is another very tough matchup for me. And while both these tracks are closer songs to their respective albums, that's actually not the only similarity that they share. They also do this great thing where they call back a melody that was present or that was, I guess, foreshadowing from a previous song or the beginning of the album as well. And I just absolutely love when artists do that. It's kind of like a reward for the listener for listening to the album all the way through. A little bit of a thank you, a little bit of a nice way to full circle moments or wrap up the whole listening experience. And it just goes to show that the art of sequencing isn't completely dead. 2 amazing tracks. I think I'm going to give it to the Phoebe Bridgers song just because I was just really impressed by the Americana sort of imagery that Phoebe Bridgers paints on this song and the apocalyptic sort of dystopian crumbling that we hear at the end of the track. Okay, we have Funny Papers, number 36, Mac Miller versus Environmental Catastrophe Film by La Dispute. Some absolutely just beautiful, raw, emotional piano work and vocal delivery on Funny Papers. At first, I wasn't completely sold on this track heard this album. I was a little bit disappointed at first that it wasn't, I guess, maybe a carbon copy of Circles for this being sort of a posthumous release, but I ended up really coming around to it, and there's obviously a heavy emotional weight to the song, and the same goes with this La Dispute song. I mean, I guess in a different aspect in that it's a little bit more angsty and emo, but the vocals are sounding so good, so impassioned on this song. I guess my only flaw is that it's a little bit too long-winded for me, so yeah, I would just give it to this Mac Miller song. Okay, Death and Romance, number 13, Magdalena Bay once again versus The Rot by Dean Blunt at number 116. As for this Dean Blunt song, I really liked the way that this pitched up vocal sounded, because it didn't sound tacky or like a gimmick or anything. It actually did feel very genuine, very pained in a way, but I was just too addicted to this Magdalena Bay song when it came out and still now. Even the little details on the drum beat, like how the drummer just uses the bell of the cymbal in the chorus, just a great track, and I think I'm gonna have to prefer this song ever so slightly, and I think you'll have to move on. Next we have this track by Omnipotent Youth Society at number 52 versus Benadryl Submarine at number 77, Little Ugly Mane once again. As for this Little Ugly Mane track, I really enjoyed how just dissonant the guitars on this track are and just how frank the vocals feel. It's kind of like this sense of indifference almost. And if you read, I guess, a little bit deeper into the symbolism in the lyrics in the song and across the album, it really is a bit sadder than I guess you would think. And it's going up against this track by Omnipotent Youth Society, and I really couldn't find a good translation for the title. I just went by the shape of the characters that I saw just to make sure I was listening to the right track. But yeah, I was shocked that this was a genuinely great prog rock song. It's just an 11.5-minute masterpiece in my opinion. I kind of wish I was able to understand or knew the lore behind this track title or what it means or anything really behind this group as well. But yeah, if you're into prog rock and you've never heard this song, I highly recommend you check this out. In my opinion, this actually can go toe-to-toe with some of the classics. So yeah, I would give it to this track by Omnipotent Youth Society that I cannot name. Okay, next is Aquamarine at number 20. This is again off of that album Cheat Codes with Black Thought and Danger Mouse versus Iron Lung by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard at number 109. And as much as I prefer the song Belize with the MF Doom feature, this is just another great lyrical masterpiece, and this is a great King Gizzard and the Lizard song. A little bit more mellowed out, and if you like this track, I would also recommend watching the music video. It's just some of the most tripped out visuals you'll probably ever see. Okay, this is a tough one. We have $0. Number 45, Cameron Winter versus Magic I Want You at number 84, Jane Remover. You know, it really breaks my heart that I'm actually gonna have to go with the Jane Remover track in this case. I just have to give credit to this new wave of Jane Remover songs. It is just super catchy. I love the guitar tones on this song, the melodies, the counter melodies, the tempo is just incredible. I think Jane has really found a way to balance sort of weird zany production with really honed in songwriting and song structure. But if you have not already, please go check out this Cameron Winter song. If you never listened to his vocals before, this might not be the first one you should probably check out. This is probably one of his most experimental vocal performances, but definitely his most emotional and expressive. So yeah, tough matchup, and I hate to see this track go out so early, but yeah, I just been loving this Jane Remover song a little bit too much. Okay, now we have a matchup for the centuries. We have American at the number 5 seed, believe it or not, by RXK Nephew versus Brat 365 at the 124th seed by Charlie XCX. So this track was my first introduction into RXK Nephew, and it was definitely a jarring one for sure. I was kind of shocked at first to see it rated so highly, because while at first I had a little bit of a disdain for it, somehow in some weird way, the more I kept listening to it, the more addictive the vocal delivery was. So yeah, at first I kind of dismissed it as another, you know, Ice JJ Fish or another Uno Miles, but actually it's just very conversational in the way that these lyrics are delivered. You know, RXK Nephew is talking about everything from religion to Jehovah's Witness to Flava Flav to Cash App to getting Keke Palmer pregnant. He's really just speaking on whatever's on his mind. I don't know if it was just the mere exposure effects, but I actually ended up really enjoying this song a lot. But yeah, this track by Charlie XCX 365. It was just too addicting. And once again, that same technique of hauling back the melody from the first track of the album, but here just turning it up a little bit, amplifying it, maybe pitching it up a little bit. Yeah, sort of creating that full circle loop of an album. The best way I can describe the synths is it kind of has a wet, almost watery texture or timbre to them. I believe the production is by A.G. Cook. But yeah, at this point, everybody's heard of this song, and yeah, I'm just gonna have to put it over, and I think this track has to walk here. Okay, Mother I Sobra at number 60. This is Kendrick Lamar versus Prologue by Kamasi Washington at number 69. And here we have Kendrick Lamar being extremely vulnerable, a little bit more quiet and stripped back on the production front. A great track. And then we have Kamasi Washington. I don't know, I just really like the way that this song is structured. You have these super catchy hooks that are repeated and sort of played on variation and expanded upon throughout the runtime of the song. These just winding, chaotic, angular saxophone solos that are laced in between. So yeah, personally, just out of personal preference, I would pick this track. I've Been Young, number 28 by George Clinton versus another Black Midi track, Slow 101. Admittedly, this is not my favorite Black Midi track on this bracket. Maybe it's a bit of a desensitization effect after listening to all the tracks off of Hellfire that came preceding this track. And then you have this George Clinton song, which I absolutely love. It has this nostalgic feel to it. I don't know if it's just the reverb, sort of washed out background vocals and pianos. But yeah, sending you back to a time, even though it's not an aesthetic that I personally grew up in, I can understand how this would be a very nostalgic track. But it's just a great tune at its core, and so I think for me personally, it has to move on. Okay, number 37, M.O.B. by Space Ghost Perp once again versus number 92, Babylon by Bus, Woods, and Kenny Siegel. And yeah, for me, it has to go to Babylon by Bus. I mean, might be my favorite groove in terms of the beat on this entire bracket. It's just such a weird sound selection in terms of the drums, and the feel is just so off kilter, almost like a drunken feel. Yeah, so I'm just in love with this beat. I've already expressed my disinterest with this whole Space Ghost Perp album. This might be my favorite beat out of all the songs off this album that appear on this bracket, just because of how ethereal and otherworldly the beat sounds. But yeah, for me, Woods and Siegel have to walk here. Okay, Headboard, Lil Ugly Mane once again, number 12 versus Winona at 117 by Def Heaven. And again, like I said with the previous track, maybe not my personal favorite aesthetic, but definitely my favorite beat so far off of this project, Volcanic Bird Enemy. But yeah, the guitars, just the pummeling beats on this song is just so heavy, so punishing. And yeah, I'm gonna have to give it to this Def Heaven track. Rebounds, number 53 by JPEG Mafia, a Dat Piff Mafia feature versus number 76 seed, we have Kyoto by Phoebe Bridgers. A bit of a tough matchup for me personally, although I think this is one of my most listened to tracks of the year that it came out. So grimy. This track kind of feels like you're on one of those Tron bicycles and you're just cruising. Just the flow state, the 808s are just so great on this track. As much as I absolutely love this Phoebe Bridgers track for the extra instrumentation, the super strong melodies, but yeah, for me, I think this JPEG Mafia song just has to walk. Power Approaches at number 21 by Cities of Eve versus Outside at number 108 by Injury Reserve. So for those that aren't familiar, as I definitely still am unfamiliar, the Cities of Eve track is a 45-minute song, a little bit sound collagey, a little bit weird and tripped out. This is definitely the most disorienting work on this entire bracket. Very psychedelic. There's a lot of repeating lyrical but also sample loops and motifs that just kind of make you forget what world or dimension you're living in. But yeah, I'm just absolutely enamored with this Injury Reserve track, Outside. For me, it wins this round personally for me. I mean, I love the urgency and the vocal delivery. I love, that lyric, we can't end this on an agree to disagree. It's so linear, so driving. It feels like you're kind of entering a storm zone in a way. And yeah, for me, it walks for this round. The Heart Part 5, Kendrick Lamar, number 44 versus the Wallflower Equation, Violet Pony, number 85. I love the Marvin Gaye sample usage on the Heart Part 5. And I remember when this music video came out for this song, I forget if we had yet reached the peak of AI, but Kendrick Lamar transforming his face into all these famous figures. And the Wallflower Equation, this is just a mysterious song to me. This is probably my favorite Violet Flower song on the bracket. Very ambitious track. I will say the beginning little lick or riff, I'm not even sure what it is. It sounds like a little bit like a plucked guitar. It could be a synth. It's probably one of the most ominous, brooding, foreboding riffs I've ever heard ever. And I really like the Western sort of themed breakdown at the end of enjoyed the song as well. But yeah, I think I prefer the Hard Part 5 ever so slightly for this round. The number 3 seed, Holy Holy by Greep versus Long Island City, Here I Come, and number 126 by Geese. Once again, just a great instrumental crescendo on this song. The bass line in the middle of the track is amazing as well. And on Holy Holy, we have a lot more of this Latin sort of flavor that's being introduced into this new sound on this record. Probably the craziest, wildest lyricism as well. As much as it pains me to put it over, I think I'm gonna have to put Holy Holy to move on to the next round. Secrets, Your Fire, number 62 by Magdalena Bay versus Movies for Guys by Jane Remover at number so yeah, these are two super addictive songs. Man, I just love the glitched out halftime groove and the transition into that on the second half of Movies for Guys. And the ending melody at the end of the song that starts with I Don't Want to Be Somebody is just so good. But for me, this Secrets Your Fire song is just a little bit more addicting. And I do actually have a soft spot for this older record. I know there's so much craze right now going on with the Imaginal Disc, and while I do think that's genuinely an amazing album and deserving of all the praise it gets, I feel like this record is just kind of left in the dust a little bit, and there's amazing cuts on it like Secrets Your Fire, which I may even prefer a little bit more over some songs off of Imaginal Disc. So yeah, if you loved Imaginal Disc and you haven't listened to Mercurial World, I highly recommend you check that album out as well. The Adults Are Talking, number 30 by The Strokes versus The Real Lil Reese, number 99, RXK Nephew. Once again, everything that was great about American Terrorists is present on this song as well. I really like the beat on this song too, and obviously this very nonchalant kind of conversational, don't care about what bar I'm coming in on kind of flow. It's just super addicting on this song. Personally, I do prefer this Strokes song over it, and at least for me, I was actually super scared when I heard the song for the very first time kicking off the new Strokes album, because, you know, I thought they were gonna go in some weird ironic electronic direction, but this ended up being an amazing song and an amazing album as well, even if the lead singer may or may not be a bit of an industry plant. I Walk, number 35 by Mount Eerie versus So You Are Tired, number 94 by Sufjan Stevens. Two very emotionally vulnerable songs in delivery and lyricism. Phil Elverum's voice just does something to me, and this song is no exception. Like I've said in the past, he just has such a knack, such a talent for making you do a full immersion into his world as a sonic landscape. So yeah, just an amazing song. I would have to say that I Walk walks here. Okay, Love Takes Miles, number 14. Cameron Winter once again versus Lost in Translation by Willie Rodriguez was taken 115. And yeah, we have some more lo-fi rock, Bliss by Willie Rodriguez here, and some great, I don't even know what to define this, from Cameron Winter once again. Just love the raw mix on this track. Yeah, just have not been getting enough of this song. So yeah, for me personally, it just has to move on to the next round. Reincarnated off of GNX, Kendrick Lamar, number 51 versus Bald, number 78 by JPEG Mafia. From a production standpoint, these two songs are just super impressive to me. You know, you could argue that the beat on Reincarnated sounds a little bit dated, a little bit elementary, but it has such an amazing harkening back to the West Coast sort of style, West Coast vibe. And from a storytelling perspective, I mean, you really have no choice but to listen in. I mean, it just kind of hooks you as to what he's trying to say and who is his R&B king that he's talking about, and how is he comparing himself personally? Like, is he saying he is the reincarnated form of these people? And who's the character that's talking to him in the last verse of the song? I mean, it's almost like he's trying to take on this sort of savior complex of trying to save his community in a way, but either this future self or this different skeleton of himself is disappointed in the progress that he's made in that effort, in that front. So yeah, this track has me wondering, contemplating a little bit, but yeah, the pre-choruses, the bridges are just absolutely beautiful on the beats as well. And then you have a very self-referential, almost meta song, Bald by JPEG Mafia. I love the way the sample kind of winds up in a way in the beginning. If I remember correctly, it's from like a Japanese racing game or something like that. Production and the flow is just so enjoyable, so creative as well. So yeah, a tough matchup. I think ever so slightly I prefer Reincarnated. Pride for me, number 19, Magdalena Bay once again versus Garden at 110 by Yabujin. I don't really know what to make of this track, Garden. It starts off like a little bit ambient, definitely definitely a spacey, zany, cloudy kind of track. For some reason, those high-pitched vocals in the chorus remind me of Last Christmas by Wham. I have no idea why. Maybe it's just the season. So yeah, I've never heard of this artist, never heard of this track. Just kind of a mystery to me as to who this artist is and how this got here. But yeah, I think I do actually prefer this Magdalena Bay track. Aesthetically, it kind of sounds almost like an ABBA song in the best way possible. And I love how towards the end, it just keeps building and building and building and building. And everything from the mix on the tom drums and the fills to even the bass line too, which is so meticulously crafted. So I have to give credit to this Magdalena Bay track. Kodak Moment number 46 by Jane Remover versus Man is Like a Spring Flower. Lingua Ignota at number 83. Once again, another super catchy Jane Remover song. And I love the super glitched out transition that's marked by the halfway point of the song too. But this Lingua Ignota song is just on just a different plane of existence. I mean, it feels so of the Victorian age. I mean, this vocal delivery is something that I can't put my finger on why it sounds so incredibly ominous. It could be the falsetto harmonies in the background that are sort of supporting the main melody. This song aesthetically sounds like you're about to be burned at the stake or you're about to be tried at the Salem witch trials or something. Just super haunting, but also very beautiful as well. Just a weird aesthetic and vibe that I can't even really describe. You just have to listen to it. For me, it just goes to this Lingua Ignota track. Okay, next we have Doves by Armed Hammer featuring Benjamin Booker at number 6 versus Dragon Newer Mountain, I Believe You at 123 by Big Thief. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to give it to Doves. This is a very polarizing song to me. I mean, it starts off incredibly beautiful. It feels like you're watching a sunset in a way, but also a deeply contemplative one, a deeply reflective one as well. And it slowly devolves and mutates into something that by the end of it is just super harrowing and actually kind of scary in the way that it sort of unravels itself into this monster of a track by the end. So yeah, I really like the progression that the song offers, and for me it just goes to Doves. Struggle with the Beast number 59 by Anna von Hauswolf versus Falling at the Sky number 70. This is Arm & Hammer, The Alchemist, as well as an Earl Sweatshirt feature. Super mellow, chilled out beat on Falling at the Sky. It really does feel like a tropical paradise. But as for this Anna von Hauswolf, I just love how unhinged the vocal deliveries can get by the end of this track. Instrumentally as well, I really like these saxophone parts, and I'm really glad that in general on this whole bracket, there seems to be a resurgence of the saxophone as an instrument that's taken a bit more seriously. I know after smooth jazz and the whole wave and sensationalization of Kenny G, it was kind of dismissed as this corny, tacky instrument that you'd only hear in like lovemaking scenes in movies. But yeah, I'm really liking this revival, this reimagination of the instrument, because it's utilized super well in this song, and this is a great, I guess post-rock is the best description of this song, I'm not really sure, but multifaceted, super versatile track. So for me, it goes to Anna von Hauswolf. The Dripping Tap number 27 by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard up against After the Earthquake by Always, number 102. After the Earthquake, this is a fantastic, super catchy, addictive indie pop, indie rock song. I love the jangly guitars. Once again, sort of a beach vibe to this song as well. But even more addicting to me is this King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard song. This is an 18-minute monster of a song, and I don't really get bored at a single second of it. I mean, it just keeps building upon itself. It's just super blood pumping, it's driving, it's just a really exciting track, and it's just a bigger helping of what King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard does best. I love the blues rock elements and this sort of, I guess it's a harmonica. I don't know why, I'm not quite entirely sure, but the instrumentation that's going on in the background is great. Just for the driving rhythms, I have to give it to The Dripping Tap, with riveting lyrics like drip drip from the top, don't slip on the drip. United in Grief number 38 by Kendrick Lamar versus Will Anybody Ever Love Me number 91 by Sufjan Stevens. This one was actually a bit of a tough matchup for me. I think the Kendrick Lamar song is a bit more varied and a little bit more schizophrenic. I love the skittering beat sample that appears. Also the recurring melody that you'll hear pop up throughout the entire album that starts off this track too. But this Sufjan Stevens track is just super heartbreaking. I mean, the lyrics alone, will anybody ever love me? For good reasons, without grievances, not for sport. I think it's a question that's been sort of lingering on every Gen Gen Z, every Zoomer's mind. I'm actually quite torn on this matchup here. I guess ever so slightly, I'll just give it to the Sufjan Stevens song. Another tough matchup here. Sugar Zoo by Black Midi at number 11 versus Thunder by Maruja at 118. Two mind-bending, mind-blowing songs in their own respective right. I mean, this Black Midi track is just ridiculous. It's one of those songs where you question the playing chops and just the performance ability as to how this band is just so tightly playing together. But that's not to take away from this Maruja song at all. I mean, this is a desolate, depraved atmosphere that's being created here. So I'm gonna give it to Sugar Zoo just by the slightest margin. But if you've not checked out this Maruja project or the band at all, this is a fantastic, fantastic song that I highly recommend. The Battle of the Alchemist produced songs Meet the Grams, Kendrick Lamar, and number 54 versus Ensalada, Freddie Gibbs featuring Anderson .Paak, number 75. And you get to see two ends of the spectrum in a way from The Alchemist, one that's cold-blooded, one that's contemplative and reflective, and the other end just being pure luxury, excellence, lavishness on the track Ensalada. And yeah, super impressive beats across this entire album, I'll admit. I guess I'll give it to Meet the Grams just for shocking the pop culture world, I guess, in a way. Number 22, Introvert by Little Sims versus 107, Nettles by Ethel Cain. I'm just gonna say right off the bat, I will give it to Introvert, but I will say this about this Ethel Cain song. I'd actually not tapped into this album, but please don't let this song slip by you. Just the vocal timbre, the texture of Ethel Cain's vocals is just silky smooth. This is perhaps one of the most beautiful songs genuinely on this whole bracket. So please give this song a listen if you've never. But just for personal reasons, I think I will put Introvert here to walk. Just the lyricism, the grandiose horn sections, the little interludes, the dynamic ups and downs. I really don't have a bad thing to say about this track. Obviously, lyrically, it's very hard and it's very pertinent for many people, I think, during this time. So yeah, I'm really sad to see this matchup because these are two incredible songs on this bracket. But unfortunately, yeah, I'm gonna have to give it to Introvert. Okay, the final matchup of the first round of the bracket, the top 128, we have You Lose by Magdalena Bay, number 43, versus Wheel by Parannoul and Asian Glow. This is my favorite Parannoul track on this whole bracket. I think the clarity of the instrumentals, the clarity in the direction and the structure of the song is really what sells it for me. This is a 15 and some change minute long masterpiece. But once again, I'm just really favoriting these older Magdalena Bay tracks. Not that this song is old, but the Mercurial Worlds tracks in the Magdalena Bay catalog. So yeah, personally, just the very fuzzy synths and the super catchy chorus for me just puts this track just a little bit ahead. Okay, so now we're into round 2. This is the top 64 tracks. We're here at our first matchup, the number 1 seed versus the number 65 seed. To me, it's kind of a no-brainer. To me, it goes to Black Country New Road, but no shade to this beautiful beach house song. Again, great pacing to the song. Definitely give this song and this whole record one Tice Melody. You can listen if you've not already. Next, we have 2 seeds that are next to each other, 32nd and 33rd seed, Jessie Ware and Sufjan Stevens here. And yeah, I'm just gonna have to keep giving it to this Jessie Ware song. It's just too insanely groovy, too elegant just to not pass up into the next round. Number 113 versus number 49. You know, as much as I love the fluttering saxophone parts off of Cali's, this track with MF Doom and Black Thought is just, it's kind of like two wizards or sages or sorcerers just kind of working their magic, working some sort of witchcraft on the song. This beat just does everything in its power to just supplement and complement these voices so well. So to me, it just has to go to Belize. Okay, next is Image at 17 by Magdalena Bay and Superman That, number 81. I don't know, this one's actually a difficult pick for me. I think I'll just ever so slightly give it to the Magdalena Bay. And by the way, if you've never seen the music videos to pretty much all of these tracks off of Imaginal Disc, these are some of the strangest visuals, costume designs, and that costume or that character of the Doctor is absolutely horrifying as well. So if you like these tracks, I would recommend watching the music videos. The number 8 seed, Adrian Lenker with Anything versus Forever, number 72, Charlie XCX. And yeah, it's the Adrian Lenker song. Just cried one too many times to this track. So far, we're just breezing through the second round, and we're up to the next matchup, which is 104 Kingdom Come and JPEG Mafia with What Kind of Rappin' Is This 89. I really wish I spent a little bit more time with this Cindy Lee record, as I did with this JPEG Mafia album, so maybe it's just my personal bias on that front. But yeah, for me, it just goes to this JPEG Mafia song. The sampling, the flow, the meta lyricism. To me, it just is the dominant track here. Okay, next is Walkin', Denzel Curry, number 9 versus Woods and Siegel, FaceTime at 56. You know, these are two great hip-hop, great rap songs, great hip-hop tracks in their own right, in their own respective lanes. Everything about the Denzel Curry track is just kind of likable off of first listen. I mean, you're pretty much guaranteed to like this thing. Very apparent on the surface level what makes the song great. You know, this Billy Woods track and a lot of Woods tracks, for that matter, are just a little bit more subtle and take a few more listens to sort of unravel itself. But yeah, I'd be lying to myself if I didn't say I didn't enjoy the Denzel Curry track just a little bit more. But it is sad to see this Woods track go, because this is genuinely an amazing lyrical feat, as well as on the production end. Truly a feat. So please listen to this song if you haven't already. I Love You, I Hate You at 105 versus Girls So Confusing at 41. Two songs that are just so emotionally mature and so emotionally vulnerable. It's kind of like a therapy session that we're hearing in real time. Almost feels like a violation of privacy that we shouldn't be hearing on both of these songs. So super respectable on that front. So yeah, I love both these tracks, but I think overall as a concept and just the overall execution, I think I like the Charlie XCX song just ever so slightly more. Jane Remover at 127 versus Spelling at 66. One sort of unravels itself very slowly and showing its full beauty. The other just super in your face, energetic. But yeah, I think this Spelling song is just kind of like the total package. It has just so many different evolutions and dynamic switches and changes throughout the song, and lyrically it's great, as I mentioned before. So as much as I really do love this Jane Remover song, I think I'm gonna have to put Spelling through to the next round. Eat Men Eats, Black Midi, number 98 versus the 95th seed Drinking Age, Cameron Winter. Yeah, it's Drinking Age. Just a masterclass at building up a track, slowly crescendoing a song in these extended vibratos, making Cameron Winter's voice just sound so just emotionally drained and defeated by the end of the song. So yeah, Drinking Age moves on to the next round. Number 114, Natalie Lafourcade versus MJ Lenderman at 79. Such a strange clash of styles that's being presented to us here. And again, what might be a little bit of a blasphemous pick, but I would actually go with She's Leaving You. The choruses and the hooks are just too sticky on this song. Knees at 18 versus Cheerleader at 82. This is actually, maybe up to this point, the hardest decision, the hardest matchup for me. I love these songs, but just for completely different reasons altogether. And much like what we see on the album cover, just this sun-drenched, sun-stained color scheme we see, sonically this song is very much in that same lane. And I just love how weird the vocal delivery is and the lyrics are on this song. But this Porter Robinson song, it's just absolute pop perfection. Again, maybe to some a little bit formulaic, but for me it just straddles that fine line between pop conventions and a bittersweet emotion that's being delivered. So yeah, as much as it pains me to see Knees go this early on in the bracket, I think I just have to give it to Cheerleader. We have Geese versus Geese, 3D Country versus Taxes. I feel like this one's kind of straightforward. And I think Taxes moves on. Born Yesterday at 103 versus Cody Blue 31 at 90. I think it's JID here. You know, shout out to Quad Echo for making the top 128. This JID performance is just too good. So yeah, JID just keeps on swinging on to the next round. Basketball Shoes at 10 versus Sadness as a Gift at 74. And yet, despite how much time and for how long this album spent in my rotation for both of these albums, but abnormally so for this Adrian Lanker album, I think it just has to go to Basketball Shoes. A lot like our number 1 seed in this bracket, this song is just one of those mind-blowing moments. And you know, the last 3 songs on this album, Answer From Up There, it's a lot to take in on your first listen, and so I didn't really clock the emotional impact of this song upon first listen. But yeah, now that I'm several listens deep, it's very clear that yeah, this is genuinely just an amazing song. Mac Miller at 23 versus Lucy Bedrock at 42. Man, these are just two amazing, great songs. I know it's a little bit blasphemous and controversial, but I think I'm actually gonna have to go with the Lucy Bedrock song. This song just blew me away, and parts of this song almost sounds like an NES game or kind of like an underwater level to like a weird indie game, in the best way possible. And obviously this is an amazing Mac Miller song too. So yeah, a little sad to see this song get knocked out this early on in the bracket as well. But yeah, after making this video, I think I'm just gonna have to do sort of a discography deep dive into Lucy Bedrock bedrock if the rest of her discography sounds anything close to this song. Okay, we're on the other hemisphere of this bracket now. We have Hazard Duty Pay versus Kingdom Hearts Key, two JPEG Mafia produced songs. And yeah, I do love both these tracks, but I think Hazard Duty Pay, the sample flip is just too crazy, so I think it has to move on. Okay, Phoebe Bridgers, I Know the End at number 29 versus Mac Miller, Funny Papers at 36. I don't think I mentioned just how amazing the horn sections are on this Phoebe Bridgers track, and just how crazy good the string sections go at the end of the song as well. So yeah, as much as I love the piano-backed Funny Papers, I'm just way too sold on this very grandiose, very ambitious end on I Know the End. So for me, yeah, the Phoebe Bridgers track just has to move on. Okay, Death and Romance, number 13. Omnipotent Youth Society at 52. Yeah, I'm actually going to give it to the prog rock epic, the 52nd seed. I really was just super impressed by the horn motifs across this track. And yeah, as much as I love Death and Romance, and as much as Magdalena Bay has been getting so much real estate on this bracket, yeah, I think Omnipotent Youth Society moves on. Aquamarine at number 20 versus Magic I Want You at 84. You know, I'm just really glad that there's artists like Jane Remover that exist in this world. Yeah, this is just such a catchy, such a catchy song. And I do prefer Belize a little bit more over Aquamarine. But yeah, still sad to see it go. But yeah, the Jane Remover song just has to move on. Charlie XCX at 124 versus Kamasi Washington at 69. Yeah, I would give it to 365. But before we just completely let go of Kamasi Washington, I will say he's probably the perfect entry artist if you're looking to get into jazz and you've already tried out all the cool jazz or all the hard bop stuff already. Just because I really do think he fits the bill when it comes to making jazz music that's accessible, and while it may not be entirely traditional because there's a lot of, you know, background vocals and maybe additional instrumentation you wouldn't find in like a quartet, for example, his soloing and his composition is still extremely expressive and the melodies are super catchy too. So yeah, definitely check out this track, check out this album, Heaven and Earth, the epic, great, super great forward-thinking jazz records. Yeah, you and I both know this Charlie XCX song is great. George Clinton, I've Been Young at 28 versus Babylon by Bus at 92. And I'm really sad to see this George Clinton song go, but this off-kilter weird beat, this film score kind of sample that's like cut in weird places, it's just too imaginative, too creative for me not to choose it to move on. And I forgot to mention the great shrapnel feature on the song too. Deaf Heaven at 117 versus JPEG Mafia again at 53. Yeah, it's for me personally and my personal taste, I think just the JPEG Mafia song just goes a little bit too hard for me not to pick it once again. Outside at 108 versus the Heart Part 5 at 44. Yeah, I would give it to the Injury Reserve track. It just feels too much like we're entering an interdimensional portal or being transported or transcended into like a different plane of existence. Just otherworldly track. Yeah, Outside moves on. Holy Holy at number 3 versus Secrets or Fire at 62. And yeah, it's kind of sad to see this Greep track go, but I'm gonna have to give it to Magdalena Bay here. I mean, kind of similar to my argument with Porter Robinson's Cheerleader. To me, Secrets is kind of like one of those near perfect, near flawless pop dance tunes. And yeah, obviously Holy Holy is great. I think my favorite off of the new sound would probably be Terra. I just really loved this trumpet breakdowns, especially towards the end of the track. To me, Secrets is just too addictive. It's just too addictive of a song. And if you want to be impressed by a transition in the album, speaking of sequencing, I would listen to the previous track, Dawning of the Season, and just listen to the transition between that song and this song, and I guarantee you, you're just going to be blown away. The Adults Are Talking, number 30 versus I Walk at 35. Casablancas's falsettos at the end of this song are just heavenly, ascending into another reality. For me, it's more the case that I just enjoyed this Mount Airy song just a little bit more. So for me, I Walk walks once again. Love Takes Miles at 14 versus Reincarnated at 51. You know, Geese and Cameron Winter is another artist that obviously has a lot of real estate on this bracket, and for good reason. And yeah, this track is no exception. It's a great track. But this Kendrick Lamar song off of GNX just has me thinking about the story a little bit more. And yeah, I'm just a little bit more invested in the lyrics, just personally on this track. Cry For Me at 19 versus Man Is Like a Spring Flower at 83. And as danceable and likable simple as this Magdalena Bay song is, for some reason it gives me a bit of a spooky Halloween feel to it. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just the delivery of Mika's vocals. But yeah, I'm just gonna have to go with this Lingua Ignota song. Just still a mystery to me as to how seemingly normal at the surface these vocals are, but it just feels like we're traveling back in time with this song. Yeah, still scratching my head as to how that's possible, really. The number 6 seed Doves versus the 59th seed Struggle with the Beast. It's Doves. A matchup with two very ambitious tracks. But yeah, this track just leaves me just with a little bit more amazement in how seamless the transition is between the two halves of each of the song, and yet how polarizingly different both halves are. The Dripping Tap at 27 versus Will Anybody Ever Love Me 91. Do I want to choose between happiness and fun or sadness and despair? And Sufjan just holding out this unadulterated existential dread on a platter served for me to look at and to stare at in the face. So yeah, this is a tough decision, but I think today I'm going to choose Happy. Black Mini once again at number 11 versus Kendrick Lamar once again at 54. I guess I'll say, as much as I do like Meet the Grams, it feels less of a single or a song as it does a vehicle to display or advocate for a message. And I guess that's kind of what I was trying to articulate with the Godspeed track earlier on in the bracket. But yeah, just the blistering intensity, the blistering speeds of the riffs, the drumming on Sugar Sue is just too mind-blowing for me not to pass up. Introvert number 22 versus You Lose at 43. To me, this kind of easily goes to Introvert. Obviously, I love this Magdalena Bay track, and please listen to Mercurial World if you have not already. As I explained before, this Little Sims track is just too impressive to me on all fronts, lyrically and on the production side as well. Okay, we are now entering the next round. We are creating a top 16 already. The place where he inserted the blade versus Spotlight. Yeah, I like the Black Country Road song just a little bit too much. But obviously, What's Your Pleasure and this track specifically, amazing track, amazing, super smooth, endlessly danceable as an album experience as well. Next, we have Belize versus Image. Yeah, it's gonna have to go to Image. And I may never beat the allegations of being a lifelong Magdalena Bay glazer, but it's just that good. Shout out to this Cheat Codes track. Anything versus What Kind of Rapping Is This? Could not be more different songs pairing up in a matchup. But yeah, it's gonna be Anything. One more time. Anything. Amazing. Walk-In versus Girls So Confusing. Such a strange matchup, but to me, everything about this whole Brat rollout was just such a triumph for Charlie. Yeah, this is just an amazing song. I think it just narrowly squeaks out the Denzel Curry track. Boys at School versus Drinking Age. This one hurts the most. I really wish it wasn't these two tracks against each other, because I really do love both of them individually. And as much as it pains me, I think I'm just gonna give it to the spelling track, Boys at School. But yeah, both are absolutely beautiful, breathtaking songs in their own right. Just narrowly, just by a hair, I think I'll give it to Boys at School. She's Leaving You versus Cheerleader. A little bit of an easier matchup. I think the answer is Cheerleader here, but yeah, She's Leaving You has just been stuck in my head for so long. So has Cheerleader as well. And again, just like a near perfect track. Axes versus Cody Blue 31. Another super difficult matchup for me. It's gonna be JID. Basketball Shoes versus How to Pretend. If we're going purely off of a song that can just kind of put on in the background or in the car, or just a song to sort of vibe to, you know, a track that I don't have to give too much thought into and I can just enjoy, I'll probably pick How to Pretend. It's probably the more accessible song for me to listen to on any given day. But yeah, just the crescendo on Basketball Shoes is just too much of a mind-blowing sight to behold. So yeah, I would give it to Basketball Shoes. Hazard Duty Pay versus I Know the End. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the Phoebe Bridgers song. Just a little bit more of an ambitious undertaking. I mean, the lyrics are just too good. The writing is just too good on the song. It's a government drone or an alien spaceship. Either way, we're not alone. Yeah, mind-blowing stuff. Omnipotent Youth Society versus Magic I Want You. Yeah, this Jane River song is just too catchy. It's too catchy. But yeah, one more time, just for the people in the back, if you're into prog rock, please do yourself the favor and check out this song. 365 versus Babylon by Bus. Yeah, we're bumping that. Rebound versus Outside. At this point, there's really no rationale to these picks. I mean, we're getting close to the end of the bracket here, and it's just getting harder and harder to pick because these are just some of my favorite songs, period. Just amazing songs. I think ever so slightly, I think I'm going to go with Outside. Secrets versus I Walk. I'm going to go Secrets. Reincarnated versus Man is Like a Spring Flower. Such a weird matchup. You know, I think both these songs have their time and place. I think Reincarnated has a bit more versatility in that I can put it on like on a playlist and not really give it much thought. Whereas the Lingua Ignota track is one where I have to pay attention to it a little bit more, and I would play it if I want to be sort of impressed by a song. Not that the Kendrick Lamar track isn't impressive by any stretch of the imagination. The lyricism is great. But yeah, the Lingua Ignota track is definitely a more immersive experience. It really is kind of like you're an outsider looking in on a scene in a movie, or better yet, you're a character in the actual scene. Yeah, I've convinced myself I'm just gonna go Lingua Ignota. Doves versus the Dripping Tap. Yeah, it's Doves. It's Doves. The last matchup of the top 16, Black Midi versus Little Sims. Yeah, for me, it's still Little Sims. I think it just hits a little too close to home. Okay, so we were now entering the quarterfinals, or the top 8 of the bracket, and we have Black Country New Road versus Magdalena Bay. It's Black Country New Road, but Image had a great run, and it's obviously still a fantastic track. Anything versus Girls So Confusing. It's Anything. Again, it's Anything. Yeah. I don't want to be the owner of your fantasy. I just want to be a part of your family. Let that sink in. Boys at School versus Cheerleader. Unfortunately, I think this is where we say goodbye to Cheerleader. Yeah. And yeah, once again, if you've not listened to this track, listen to it. It's like 2 minutes of just pop perfection. Guaranteed the hook, the chorus is gonna get stuck in your head. So yeah, shout out to Porter Robinson. It was a great run for making this far into the bracket. Little surprised there weren't any songs off of Nurture that made it into the top 128. But yeah, this is just a great song. But yeah, Boys at School just has too much. It's just oozing with too much creativity and substance and hard-hitting lyricism. Cody Blue 31 versus Basketball Shoes. It just has to be Basketball Shoes. And I hate to put 2 Black Country New Road songs moving on to the next round, but yeah, please do not discount this GID song. If you're a rap fan, hip-hop fan, R&B fan, this is kind of like a must listen. Basketball Shoes is just too powerful. Okay, I switched over to the other side, and we're on to I Know the End versus Magic I Want You. Yeah, it's the Phoebe Bridgers song. I mean, Jane Remover is just on a generational run. So massive respects to Jane Remover and this track. But yeah, I think I just have to give it to the Phoebe Bridgers track. 365 versus Outside. Just how could you do this to me? How could you pick between? As much as I love Brad, I think I'm gonna have to go with Outside. Just one of those songs where the first time you listen to it, you know you found something special, like truly special. This track just really feels like you're strapping in for takeoff. Just an amazing song. So yeah, Outside moves on to the next round. Secrets Are Fire versus Man Is Like a Spring Flower. Yeah, I think it just has to go to Magdalena Bay once again. Yeah, it's going to Secrets. Doves versus Introvert. Yeah, it's Introvert. It's Introvert. Once again, Introvert moves on. And just like that, we've created our top 8, and we're now weeding out our top 8. First, we have The Place Where He Had Started the Blade versus Anything. Man. I think I'm just gonna narrowly have to give it to The Place Where You Started the Blade. There's just something so satisfying about the way the song progresses. However, if you're looking for just excellent lyricism, excellent songwriting, and just a great cathartic cry, look no further than this amazing Adrian Linker song. Now we have Boys at School versus Basketball Shoes. And just looking at both these songs at face value, I think I honestly get the most enjoyment out of Basketball Shoes. Obviously the ending, but it's the payoff at the end that is just this incredible climax that the song reaches, your generous loan to me, your crippling interest, and just the way that the entire band just comes together. And once again, being a closer track from Ants from Up There, I love the callback to the initial saxophone melody that we hear on the intro track to this album. It's almost like a litmus test or like a hallmark indicator that you're listening to like an amazing album, that it has a closer that does a callback to the intro song. And despite how much lyrical tiptoeing that Isaac Wood has been doing across this whole album, you know, we finally have the final confrontation that just name drops Charlie in the very final climax of the song. And looking at Boys at School, I mean, it's the way that the song ebbs and flows throughout the entire runtime of the track that just makes it enjoyable from start to finish. I think as a fully formed, polished piece, I think Boys at School actually takes it in this case. Okay, on the other side of the bracket, we have I Know the End, Phoebe Bridgers versus Outside, Injury Reserve. As much as I hate to see it, I think this is where we say goodbye to Phoebe Bridgers, and I think Outside has to take the top 4 placement here. Yeah, like I said, this is just such an out-of-body experience from this song. Such a weird, glitched out kind of way that this track builds up. But yeah, obviously massive respect, massive props to this finale track off of Punisher. Amazing, amazing stuff. And lastly, we have Secrets, Your Fire versus Introvert in this quadrant. Yeah, once again, I think it's gonna have to be Introvert. If you're just looking for just a super catchy song, I mean, look no further than Secrets. I guess in a weird way, by doing this bracket, I'm kind of just singling out my favorite Magdalena Bay song in a weird sense, but I really do think the production is that clean, is that on point. But yeah, this Little Sim song is just, it's too instrumentally layered and nuanced for me to not put it in the top 4. I just realized how annoying it probably is seeing my face cam being swapped around side to side to side. So yeah, I'm just gonna stay in this spot for the rest of the video. But yeah, these are the top 4 songs of the bracket. Just a review of what we have so far. The number 1 seed made it to the top 4, the place where he inserted the blade. It's going up against the 66th seed, Boys at School by Spelling. And then up here in the northeast quadrant, we have Outside, Injury Reserve. This is the 108th seed. And then down here we have Introvert, which is the 22nd seed by Little Sims. I'd say we have a pretty even spread ranging from all across the top 128 songs. And for our first semifinal matchup, the place where you inserted the blade versus Boys at School, I think it's gonna have to be Boys at School. That's gonna move on to the final round. It really is one of those like weird phenomenon, I guess once in a decade you could say, kind of songs that you get that pop up seemingly out of nowhere, but just incredibly beautiful. Every instrument is like chosen perfectly to be on this track. And the same I would say on the place where you inserted the blade, a vastly different instrumental palette, and obviously one of my favorites on the album and of the decade here. So yeah, at this point I'm just kind of going based off my gut, and it's telling me that Boys at School moves on to the final round. And our other semifinal matchup, we have Outside, Injury Reserve versus Introvert, Little Sims, and yeah, it's gonna be Introvert. And I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't think as an album sometimes I might be Introvert is actually nearly as strong as the other top 4 contenders here, but this track is just so focused in the message it's trying to convey and the point it's trying to get across, and a lot of the charm that comes from Outside is present on other songs in the album, like other songs we saw on the bracket. So honestly, in a way, I guess you could kind of interchange Knees and Superman that in this top 4 placement, kind of in a way. I do love all those tracks obviously and this album by the time I get to Phoenix, but yeah, just these disorienting, super glitchy, just weird experimental sampling and looping and chopping and cutting, but in a way that doesn't sound so foreign, so alien, so isolating or inhuman. It still feels very grounded, very genuine and emotional, and that's what I find so impressive about Outside. But yeah, Introvert takes this round for me. And now we are finally here. This is the final round, the top 2 songs of the decade, in my opinion. Boys at School versus Introvert. Yeah, obviously I absolutely adore and are just super impressed by both of these songs. But if I were to crown one winner, I think it's gonna have to be Introvert. And yeah, I think that's my song of the decade. You know, there are some songs that, and some albums honestly, that require multiple listens for me to sort of click or to get into. This is one of those tracks where like I was making a conscious effort to sort of hang on to every single lyric, every single word, every little flute passage, every rim shot, every little production detail. On my first listen, I was just hooked and captivated. Maybe it was just sort of the branding and the title that was sort of alluring to me, but I mean, to me, in this track, there's just so much to chew on. Whether you are talking about the background vocals, the instrumentation, like I mentioned, the multiple phases, it really just feels like a theatrical play or movie that you're seeing through the sensory input of listening and hearing. But yeah, I just love every single aspect of this song. I mean, in terms of lyrical content and delivery, Little Sim's just at the top of her game. I mean, it just sounds so incredibly driven, motivated on the mic, in my opinion. I mean, you have lines like, I'm not into politics, but I know it's dark times. Parts of the world still living in apartheid. You have these introspective moments and really showcasing and advocating the power of reflecting and internalizing your own emotions, coping with being an artist in the world today, and yet still having reservations and inhibitions, dealing with your own personal emotions, but also feeling the need to be forced to produce something or to show off or to perform as well. I hate the thought of just being a burden. If there was any line that could sum up the majority of my internal monologue, that would probably be a satisfactory line. You know, Sims the artist or Simbi the person. So yeah, lyrically, this is just a great triumphant song. And yeah, I just can't stop listening to it. And that's why it's my song of the decade. So yeah, that is personally my song of the decade, or my songs of the decade. It's hard choosing just one. But yeah, if your song did not land in this top 128 at all, of course, please let me know in the comments below. What is your personal song of the decade and why? And if you enjoyed watching this video, you somehow made it to the end, consider subscribing to the channel so I can make more videos just like this one. But yeah, that's it for me, and I'll see you in the next one.